What's going on, everybody? Josh McCarty from Bill's Chat, and I wanted to have this quick chat with you all today on the topic everybody's talking about, the Tyler Dunne piece that came out on Thursday at GoLongTD on Sean McDermott, because it is a polarizing article. There's a lot in there, and I just wanted to give you my thoughts on it, among other things that sprang from this article coming out. There was a lot of heated debate on Twitter. There was attacks on Sean McDermott. Is he an awful human being? There were attacks on Tyler Dunne. Is he out to sabotage the Bills? You saw my fellow content creators going at it with one another. I want to talk about the role that I believe content creators play in this space and get a little bit into that. So I want to cover a lot today. So bear with me. Hopefully we can all kind of have a conversation together, and maybe on the other side, we all feel a little bit better about where we're standing. This is just my opinion. But first of all, what the article was about. For those that don't know, Tyler Dunne put out this piece on Sean McDermott. And look, out of respect to Tyler Dunne and GoLongTD, I am not going to go super in depth into what this article is about, because GoLongTD is a subscribe site and I am a subscriber. I read the whole thing. What I don't want to do is find myself giving away things that subscribers only should have access to. So I'm trying to be very careful with what I say here in this first part. If I've seen it put out on Twitter, ESPN, I'm fine covering it. But the genesis of the article is it's a very long read. It's a 3-part piece basically on Sean McDermott, and the nuts and the bolts of it are, is Sean McDermott the right man for the Buffalo Bills head coaching job? And they get into a lot. Interpersonal relationships with players, coaches, staff, how he treats certain people in the building, how he carries himself, the mood in the building when he's around, how he manages position coaches, how he manages things like that. Good stories in there on Chad Hall, what ultimately led to Chad Hall leaving for Jacksonville. Really good stories in there on Brian Daboll. Good thoughts from ex-players on if they thought that the Bills made a mistake and let the wrong coach go. Good stuff on Leslie Frazier and what really happened there at the beginning of this offseason when Leslie Frazier stepped away. What was the real story there? A lot of good stuff. But I think the overall impression I got from this article is, I think the conversation surrounding Sean McDermott is very similar to the one we've already been having. Now, look, Tyler Dunne uncovered a lot of stories that none of us knew nothing about. And it brings us back to the same point that a lot of us have been sitting at as the season has gone on. Is Sean McDermott the right man for the job? We all know what a gift from the football gods Josh Allen is as a quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, and how much easier having that franchise quarterback makes your job as a head coach to win. But what happens in those key moments that has Sean McDermott's team so consistently coming up short? Those high leverage situations, he continues to go left when he should go right. He keeps pushing the wrong buttons, and that is kind of becoming his legacy. As the bigger the moment gets, the more mistake prone he is. And I thought Tyler Dunne did a really solid job of digging into that. So I want to talk a little bit about the fallout from this article hitting yesterday. And as happens when an article like this hits, it is such a long read. I mean that as a compliment. Please don't take it any other way. I was reading it during the Patriots Steelers game on Thursday. Go Patriots, by the way. I mean, we needed that as Bills fans. That's as an aside. And I started reading it in the middle of the first quarter, and I was telling Luca, my podcast partner, I didn't finish it until the early fourth quarter. Now, look, I was watching the game, so I would take breaks and look up. I would take breaks to look at my phone and see how certain bets I had were going, check in on fantasy. My wife would come in the room and I'd stop and talk to her. But to give you an idea, that's how long it took me to get through it. And it was a very thorough article. And one thing that came out of it is there were a lot of attacks on Tyler Dunne, the author of this piece. And there were questions around, why would he wait to release this the week of the Chiefs game? The timing couldn't be worse. The Bills are getting ready for this huge game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Their season is on the line. Why would he release it this Thursday? And does Tyler Dunne hate the Bills? There's a school of thought that maybe he has an agenda against them. We'll get into that and maybe the reasons for that. And is it a hit piece? Did Tyler Dunne only interview people that had negative things to say about the Bills? And I'll have some thoughts on that too. But what I will start off with is the timing piece of this. And there's two ways I can answer this. One, Tyler Dunne owes the Bills nothing as far as timing goes. That's just the harsh reality of this. He does not work for the Bills. He got the story done, published it when he saw fit, which was the best case for his business model. And that is okay. That is for lack of a better term, that's the dog he has in this fight, is that his GoLongTD. It doesn't matter to him if the Bills are prepping for the Chiefs or the Cowboys or the Dolphins. When he gets the information out there and it's ready to publish, it's ready to go. I do think if you took the time to read the article, it's painfully obvious that Tyler Dunne has been working on this for a long, long time. This isn't a situation where last Saturday he decided to call 25 friends, throw this together, and put out 20,000 words on the Buffalo Bills. This clearly has been an article he's been working on for months, in my opinion. And I will say the Bills are in this situation where there's not really going to be good timing. Would it have been better to be during the bye week or the week before the Eagles game? If he waits until after they lose the Chiefs game, look, after they lose the Chiefs game, I'm going to give a Chiefs Bills prediction at the end of this show. I'm feeling really good about that game, but just stay with me for a second. Let's say the Bills lose the Chiefs game. Okay. And now we're all feeling like the season's over. And then he releases it the next week. Doesn't it look like he's piling on? And now the Cowboys are coming to town. That's a spotlight game. Or what if the Bills beat the Chiefs? And now Bills Cowboys is the highlight game of the week next week. And Tyler Dunne releases it on Thursday. There was no right answer for when to release this. So I am giving him a huge pass on the timing piece because, one, not his job to worry about how the team's doing when he releases it. His job is to put the information out when he feels it's ready. And two, I don't think there was a perfect time to do this. I think you start looking throughout the rest of the season. Is he supposed to sit on it until February? That's not how this works in the media. You have the information, you put it out there. Does Tyler Dunne hate the Bills? That's silly. Why would Tyler Dunne hate the Bills? Now, I understand there's a story, and true story, that Tyler Dunne is not credentialed by the Buffalo Bills. So for those that don't know, that means that he's not able to go to press conferences, go to practices. He has a harder time getting access to players that the normal beat reporters get. And he came on WGR yesterday with Shope and Bulldog and said the Bills are one of the few teams that don't grant access to GoLongTD. And their reasoning was that they don't want to give access to new media. And the thought was, oh, well, Tyler Dunne has it out for the Bills because of that. Now, look, I understand the school of thought, but Tyler Dunne makes his money covering the NFL. Do you really think it's in his best interest to get a reputation as a guy that's petty, that holds grudges, and singles out certain teams? Probably not. The other thing I will tell you, he owns Go Long. It is his company. And when he launched it as a guy who lives in Buffalo, a large portion of his subscriber base was Buffalo Bills fans. He puts out a podcast with former Bills front office executive Jim Manos. And they talk a lot about Buffalo Bills stories. They cater a lot to Buffalo Bills fans. He had a podcast with Isaiah McKenzie last year that was solely focused on the Buffalo Bills, although they had some pretty funny Isaiah McKenzie stories. Look up the Notre Dame one, by the way, when you get a chance. That's neither here nor there. But where I'm going with this is, if anything, Tyler Dunne is invested in the Bills being good. Because the more good the Bills are, the more interest there are in Bills stories, and the better that is for his business. So is he a Bills fan? No, I think he grew up a Green Bay Packers fan. Most reporters are not fans, by the way, folks. That's just how it works. But from his standpoint, if the Bills were to say fire McDermott and trade Josh Allen and go back into a 17-year drought, that would be horrendous for his business model. So while he's not out there actively rooting for the Bills, to say that he's trying to sabotage the Bills is very short-sighted when you really understand how his business is invested in a team and a large portion of his subscribers. And if that team's good, it's great for business. So I found that to be a little bit off base as well. And then, is it a hit piece? I don't believe so. 25 sources. I saw people say he went out and he interviewed 25 sources, all with an agenda against Sean McDermott. Guys, gals, people that were upset about this. If you read the article, you know that's just simply not true. He had quotes in the article from Isaiah McKenzie, Tywan Jones, Patrick DeMarco, Lee Smith, Mitchell Trubisky, all with glowing things to say about Sean McDermott. Let me tell you guys a little story. I actually have a journalism background, not nearly as extensive as Tyler Dunne's. Back when I was in college, I worked for my school newspaper, and I was a sports reporter. So I had various teams I covered on the beats, several teams. So I had formed relationships with athletes, both male and female, from doing different stories. And I got a tip from one of the athletes I covered. She was a very good athlete in the area. She had like Olympic aspirations type level player. And she reached out to me and let me know she was transferring to a different school. And this was a huge story. And I had it in my lap. And so the reason she was transferring was the fact that she didn't get along with the coach. She didn't trust the coach. She had, some really bad things to say about his character as a coach. You get the idea. And so I'm getting ready to break a story, and this is a big story, and I'm going to break it for the school paper. And the teacher, that whatever the professor that kind of oversaw the journalism department made sure that I understood that if there are attacks on somebody's character in this story, before we hit send on this, I have to give that person a chance to answer those attacks. That rounds the story out, because a one-sided piece on, oh, this coach is bad and this is the coach that I was covering, X, Y, and Z, with me not even trying to reach out to him for his side of the story, makes the story a little hollow. You're only hearing one side of the story. So I reached out to that coach, and he declined to comment. And I was like, look, in fairness to you, I would like to tell you everything she's going to be saying about you, because I think it's fair to give you an opportunity. So I read it, no comment. Read it, no comment. It was awkward. We posted the story. He was not happy with me. He tried to get it taken down because it was a school paper. It didn't get taken down. But why am I telling you this? Tyler Dunne does not have access to Bills players and coaches. They make it very difficult for him to get that. If you don't think that Tyler Dunne tried his hardest to get Sean McDermott to comment on this, then you are not seeing the bigger picture. He knows that for a story like this, if he had Sean McDermott comments in there to counter some of the stories we heard from that piece, that makes the piece that much better for him. But what the Bills told him is, you are not credentialed. If you want to use quotes or have access to our players, we encourage you to use the website. Use the website. So the only access Tyler Dunne has is Sean McDermott saying we're taking it one day at a time with Ike Botker's ankle injury or whatever. Like, what good does that do for this story? He was walled off. He clearly tried to balance the story out by reaching out to players like I already mentioned, the Tywan Jones, the Isaiah McKenzie's. Mitchell Trubisky definitely had good things to say about Josh Allen. I don't necessarily think he was asked a question about McDermott. Lee Smith, very much good things to say about Sean McDermott. Tyler Dunne absolutely tried to get both sides presented in the story, but it's important for everybody to keep in mind the side of the Bills, the side of defending the Bills, the side of defending Sean McDermott was much harder for him to access. He had to go to back channels. He had to rely on relationships, the relationship he has with Isaiah McKenzie and Lee Smith. He couldn't just go to the Bills and say, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with Stephon Diggs. He's been here since 2020. I'd love to talk to Josh Allen. I think this would be a great opportunity for me to talk to, I don't know, just think of anybody. Think of anybody in that building that would have added to this story, and maybe even Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane. But that wasn't the case. So that's not Tyler Dunne's fault. The fact that the story comes off as one-sided is because he had much easier access to the 25, or not 25, to the sources that were there on the negative side. Now, look, the other thing I will say, there was people up in arms about unnamed sources, and you should put a name on the sources. And I would just say this, and I understand that frustration. Every time I hear it, I understand it. That's just not how it works. If we would never get in-depth coverage, uncover things that we never knew about sports, about politics, if people had to put their name on it. Think about an NFL press conference. Okay. Any coach you want, Sean McDermott, Mike Tomlin, Andy Reid, they're standing at the press conference, the camera's on them, and you know everything they are saying is coming directly from them. Do they ever give you anything good? Ever? Sean McDermott's like, I will take it one day at a time. Mike Tomlin's like, the standard is the standard. Mike Tomlin's not going to go out there and be like, well, Deontay Johnson's a real pain in the ass to coach. That's not how it works. I just randomly chose Deontay Johnson, by the way. I have no idea if he's a pain in the ass. The point is, when you have sources that don't have to put their name on it, that's how you uncover the good stuff, the true stuff, the stuff that they don't have to shield themselves through the PR. Does it feel grimy? Yes, absolutely. But that's how you uncover things. And it doesn't just happen in stories like this. Saturday night before Sunday, Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport are going to tweet out a series of tweets. I'm picking random players here. Trevor Lawrence looks like he's going to play on Sunday per source. We'll see if he does or not, but it's per source. It's not like per Doug Peterson, per Trevor Lawrence. It's always per source. That's how all these things go. They never name their sources. You don't name your sources because you're building relationships and you want to sustain those relationships. And honestly, if your source tells you it's off the record, guess what? You can't name your source in that situation. You're not allowed to. So Tyler Dunne having unnamed sources was not a red flag to me. Now, look, it sounds like I'm really defending Tyler Dunne in this situation. I can sympathize with where he came from. I do think that this article from start to finish is not a great look for Sean McDermott. I think in a lot of ways, it makes him come off looking paranoid. It makes him look like some of the seasons coming up short are starting to get to him. Maybe he's hard to deal with. I will say also that there was some pushback because the one blurb from the story was this speech that Sean McDermott gave his team in 2019 training camp. And the analogy he used was we need to make sure we're all communicating well. And he started using an analogy that tied in the 9/11 terrorist attacks and did so from like the terrorist point of view about how aligned they were in their communication. And look, you read that, you hear that, and you're just like, whoa, what? And because that part of the story got so much traction, rightfully so, that's a jarring thing to hear and to read. For a lot of people yesterday, that was the story. A lot of people, I think, took away that this was a 20,000 word piece on Sean McDermott trying to compare his team to 9/11 terrorists. And that just wasn't the case. When you read the story, it's just a small blurb talking about how Sean McDermott at times has trouble not being awkward in front of his team or has trouble pushing the right buttons. And it even acknowledges in the story that Sean McDermott apologized to his team, I believe the same day is what it said in the story. It's like he apologized the same day. So it's not like that was in the story and didn't mention it. And that got national headlines, and Sean McDermott had to apologize again for that, address it again on Thursday. And look, my thought on that is when I read the 20,000 word, whatever it is, article, the 9/11 thing was like, I don't know, 9th or 10th on the list of things that I took away from that article. That read to me more like somebody that was either nervous, awkward. Haven't we all been in situations, not that we reference 9/11, but we're in a conversation and we're trying to come up with an analogy or we're trying to explain ourselves, and you kind of start going down the road of it and you're just like, you know what, this one's not really landing the way I thought it was when it was cooking up here, and now that it's coming out of here, it's just a little bit, it's falling flat. That sounds like that's exactly what happened with Sean McDermott there. I don't personally get the feeling that he used the 9/11 thing because he's insensitive to the terrorist attacks. I really believe that it was poor judgment on his part. And I will just tell you this. My read on Sean McDermott, whether you like him as a coach, whether you don't like him as a coach, whether you think he's the right guy for the Buffalo Bills, he seems like a very genuine, like true to himself kind of person. That's just how he's always come off to me. I could be wrong. That's how he comes off to me. And that would not seem to align with who he is. But because that gained so much traction, everybody's like, why did Tyler Dunne wait to report this if it happened in 2019? Tyler Dunne probably found out about it while he was doing research for this article, because this article was not about a 9/11 speech. The article was about Sean McDermott as a whole, and that's one story he got along the way. So that's why yesterday, Schefter, Rappaport, Barstool are all talking about 9/11, but when you look, or the 9/11 speech, excuse me, and then when in reality, the larger piece of this article was about whether Sean McDermott is the right guy for the Buffalo Bills. I guess I will close that piece of this commentary before I get into more of like a larger conversation about content creators and maybe our role in all of these things. Yesterday's article, as great as it was, as thorough as it was, it didn't change my opinion on Sean McDermott too much. It kind of, I think Mike Shope on WGR said it best. If you took the time to read the article, chances are it's going to confirm your priors. If you went into this article thinking that Sean McDermott's over his head as head coach, then you're going to read this and you're going to be like, yep. If you went into this thinking that the Bills need to keep Sean McDermott and then that he's the best coach they've had since the drought and they're just having a down year, yada, 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 you probably read that article and your first thought was, I got to attack Tyler Dunne because he has it out for my head coach. So I did not necessarily think, I understand. Look, Sean McDermott came out on Friday and said that it was an attack on his character. I get where he's coming from because all those words in that article were about him. And that could not have been comfortable to read or listen to because there was a lot of negative comments in there from a lot of former players and coaches. But in general, I don't think that anything that was in that article necessarily move me off my spot. I still think that the Bills should evaluate Sean McDermott at the end of the season. I do have concerns if he's the right guy for the job. However, I defer to people that I trust that cover the team. Tim Graham is batting like 1,000 on covering the Bills, by the way. Like when he says something, a lot of times we don't like the answer he says, like the Bills are not going to trade for DeAndre Hopkins, but it turns out to be right. And Tim Graham reported a couple weeks ago that barring something unforeseen, it would be shocking if the Bills moved on from Sean McDermott this offseason. Tyler Dunne mentions in his piece that blurb from Tim Graham and also says the research he has done since the article was written tells him that he does not expect there to be a coaching change. So again, if you read the article, this was not an article that was calling for Sean McDermott to be fired in the sense of like, here's this laundry list of things that's going to expose you. It was a piece that was just trying to make the case that, hey, you have this gazelle of a quarterback. You have this roster that, by the way, it made Brandon Beane sound like one of the best GMs in the sport. And boy, oh boy, did it glow about Josh Allen. So if you want to read an article that talks great about Josh Allen and great about Brandon Beane, because I know, look, Josh Allen has a celebrity girlfriend now. I guess he's in a lot of commercials. He's combing his hair different if you're interested in stuff like that. I'm not. But, is Josh Allen going Hollywood? Like, holy cow, this article will just tell you why teammates want to run through a wall for that guy. So if you're afraid to read it because you're afraid it's anti-Bills, just go ahead and skip down to that third section, the Josh Allen section, and you're going to fall in love again with your franchise quarterback. And these are new quotes, and it's really good stuff. I don't think it's going to impact Sean McDermott's. I don't think it's going to impact really whether or not he's the coach next year. I think much more of that will be on one, assuming what Tim Graham reported is true, which I am always going to assume. If Terry Pagula right now would need something catastrophic to happen, then I guess the quickest way to get rid of Sean McDermott, if that's what you want to do, is hope the rest of the season goes south in a big way. But I would not anticipate a coaching change happening, and I would not anticipate this being much of a story. It always seems like a huge deal in the moment. In a couple weeks, I think it'll mostly blow over. But I do think this was a very good article written by Tyler Dunne. I think the attacks on him from some folks have been very unfair. And that's where I want to go next, because a lot of those attacks came from my fellow content creators. Now, look, Luca and I are new to this content creation game. Bill's Chat started March of 2022. Yes, right. Because our first game, the post game show far was Bills Rams. And look, I've been here long enough to know that, there's a certain stigma around content creators. People think that, oh, you content creators, you all live in your mom's basement. Like, I'm in a basement right now, but it's my basement. I live with my wife and my kids. It's my basement. It's not my mom's basement. She's welcome here anytime she wants to be here, but I have a job. I have kids. This is not what I do for a living. This is very much a hobby. Been pretty therapeutic, by the way, after some of the tough losses. But, you're all homers. You all just tell us what you want to hear. I've heard that a million times. And then the other side of it is, if I ever come out and I say something like last season, when the Bills were really struggling down the stretch, and even when they were winning games, it just didn't really pass the eye test. You felt like the team was running out of gas. I came out and said, I just don't think they're a very good team. I think they're just kind of okay. And people thought, oh, you're just saying that for clicks. Look, they're a 13-win team, and you just want clicks. You just want impressions. I got to tell you all, maybe this is a secret, but I've had tweets from our Bills Chat podcast account that get hundreds of thousands of likes, millions of impressions. And you know what? You give me that and $1 in my pocket, and I can barely afford a Coke. Getting hundreds of thousands of likes on an occasional tweet does nothing for me. Not a damn thing. It doesn't increase my quality of life whatsoever. It doesn't put another dime in my pocket. And if anything, it becomes an annoyance when a tweet blows up. I don't mean that. I love when something I put out there makes you all want to interact, because I do love interacting with you all. But like when a tweet blows up, like one of the Diggs ones we had last offseason, where we got into the millions on impressions, and it was picked up by a couple like national outlets. It was like I couldn't even check my phone anymore, because it was just like boom, 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 boom. Finally had to mute it. But it kind of makes, Twitter unbearable. It can be kind of obnoxious, and then it'll go on for weeks, because once it gets that big, then people will see it 2 weeks later and they'll comment. You're like, what the hell is this? I thought we were done with this. But long story short, I know they say that content creators are out here just fishing for likes, and I can't speak for all content creators. I don't think anybody should speak for all of anybody in a certain segment. But speaking for me, I don't care about likes. I don't care about impressions. I don't care about my follower count or our follower count on Bill's Chat. I do this as a hobby. I have no plans of one day being Rich Eisen. Like, that's just, that's not going to happen to me. So I hope you all understand I'm being genuine with you right now. Getting a bunch of likes on a tweet, I guess it's cool in the moment when randomly a tweet you're not expecting to blow up gets thousands of likes out of nowhere. But in general, it doesn't do anything for me at all as far as moving the needle in my quality of life. So I hope you all can understand that. But this idea that, all content creators are homers, or all content creators are this, or all content creators are that. Why am I talking about this? Well, yesterday when the Tyler Dunne piece came out, I think there's a stigma that Bills content creators, and I'm only speaking about the Bills because this is the space I'm in. It probably happens with other teams. Bills content creators are kind of anti-beat reporters, right? Like we think we can do the job they do better. Content creators think that the beat reporters ask lazy questions. Content creators think that the beat reporters ask irrelevant questions. And we let us go to practice. We'll show you how it's done. We're way more entertaining than the beat reporters who do their own podcast, whatever. And I'll just tell you, like, one rule I have in life is I never assume that everybody that happens to be part of one segment is the exact same way. And two, I can tell you, I have a lot of respect for the Bills beat reporters and people that cover the team. I think that we are very lucky with this team to have some of the talented individuals we have. Joe Biscaglia is one of the best NFL reporters in the entire league. and he's recognized as such. He's a go-to for many fantasy analysts for his ability to do roster projections. And Catherine Fitzgerald, I'm not saying this to be like, I haven't eaten yet today, so my brain is, I think it's Fitzgerald at the Buffalo News. Also very excellent. She spent time with Arizona. She's very well known. Very lucky to have her. Heather Prusak, fantastic. Sal Capaccio, very, very good. There's more. I don't want to sit here and just name them all, but the Bills are very lucky, I think, with a lot of the coverage they get. And I see, I see some of the back and forth, and there's the idea like, oh, content creators hate reporters. So yesterday it felt like a very big, like, ooh, content creators are going to stand up and defend our team against this mean reporter who's not a beat reporter. He's a columnist, or not a columnist. He's this is a feature writer, against this feature writer who wrote something bad about our team. And I saw some content creators stand up and get very loud, some of which were my friends, are people that I consider friends of mine. But I just hope that you all understand that we are all individual, and we all, just because I'm Bill's chat, and just because, so-and-so's cover one, and, so-and-so is Buffalo Fanatics, and so-and-so is Buffalo Rumblings. Like, we don't all share the same brain. And even digging into it deeper, I see all the time on Twitter, like, oh, those cover one guys, boy, are they obnoxious. Boy, are they arrogant. Boy, do they all do this, this, and this. And it's like, I got friends at Cover One. I'm telling you, there are some good folks that work there. And, I see some tweets that rub people the wrong way from folks that work at Cover One, but Bill's chat's part of Built in Buffalo. Okay. Dave Myers is the owner of Built in Buffalo. He's the founder. He tweeted something about Tyler Dunne yesterday that I very much disagree with. Does that mean that Dave and I are enemies now? No. Does that mean that Dave and I don't get along because we don't have the same opinion on Tyler Dunne? Absolutely not. That's what this whole thing is it's all about forming opinions. And, the fact that if all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, your Bill's chat's part of Built in Buffalo, so you must think X, Y, and Z. No. You want to know what I think? Come ask me what I think. Don't sit there and think that all Cover One people agree with it because you saw one person from Cover One tweet it. That's lazy. And I think that happens a lot to content creators. But I will just say that I do think for us in this space, in my opinion, sometimes it's hard to kind of feel our way through because something happens that's very big for the Bills. We feel almost an obligation to comment on it because, our followers are Bills fans for the most part. Like last week when the Von Miller story broke, I didn't know what to say. What am I going to say? It's domestic violence. I certainly don't know if he did it or he didn't do it, particularly 5 minutes after the story broke. And I certainly don't want to be the one up there that's saying, oh, you have to cut Von Miller, or on the extreme other side, oh, she's probably lying. It's a money grab. I don't want my name on any of that. I have zero idea of the legal procedures or what that means for the Bills or anything. So I kind of stayed away from it. I even put up an apology tweet later, like, hey, I realize this is going on. I never know what to say in these situations. And I certainly don't want to say anything that rubs somebody the wrong way that maybe has been a victim of domestic violence, because those are the people that I'm thinking about in that moment. Those are the people that, are really the most hurt by this. So, I figure that situation will take care of itself. I certainly, I have some thoughts on how the Bills have handled it since. I think that they probably could have done a couple things different, but all in all, I just hope the best for those people. But yesterday, I felt like there was like, oh, now the content creators are going at Tyler Dunne. Like, I don't know. I'm a content creator. I like Tyler Dunne. I think his work was excellent. And I think that I believed the second I read the story, I believed every word in it. Show me a time Tyler Dunne's been caught lying. And then maybe I'll take it seriously that he's making up stuff to sabotage the Bills. Does that mean I hate Sean McDermott? No, not everything has to be extremes either or. It's just very much so that in this case, I think Tyler Dunne is provably excellent, an award-winning reporter who has covered this league for a long, long time. And I don't think he has to prove himself to anybody. There was a segment of fans in Green Bay that at one point in time thought he had it out for the Packers because he dared to say several years ago that the Rodgers-Packers relationship wasn't as strong as we all thought. Well, how's that looking these days? So anyway, those are my thoughts. I don't think this is going to be a distraction for the Bills. I really don't. I think it's been well documented. Tim Graham said that, the 9/11 piece of the story that blew up yesterday was not a surprise. This is something that people have known about, and in a lot of ways, maybe already kind of like laughed off. Just an awkward, forgettable moment from McDermott that he owned up to and acknowledged. I don't think this is going to somehow, like, if the Bills were to go out and lose this weekend, the reason why. Is it going to be something people want to grasp onto if they do lose? Sure, I guess, but no, I don't think it works like that. I think that sometimes we get caught up in this bubble of Twitter and online arguments, and we really do think that these things that make us so angry and these things that make us so passionate have an impact on the team, and it just really doesn't. I would say that the I think the Bills are live this weekend. I really do. I feel as good about the Bills coming into this game as I did about the Eagles game. I think timing is on the Bills' side. I thought the Bills were going to beat the Eagles. They came up just short. And I don't always just predict the Bills to win, by the way. No, I don't. I have predicted them to lose quite a few times this year. I'm picking the Bills to win this weekend. I think that they're going to beat the Chiefs. The Pacheco injury to me is very significant. I guess I'm kind of going into a game pick here. I think timing, desperation is on the Bills' side. And I know there's this school of thought that the Chiefs, they've lost 2 in a row. What are the odds they lose 3 in a row? But that to me is not tangible. Like, what does that mean? They're going to want it more. The Bills aren't going to want it as much. Like, to me, it's how are you playing? Have the Bills looked as good as they've looked the last 2 weeks all season since week 3? No. Well, week 4 when they played the Dolphins? No. Like, this is as good as the Bills have looked all year. Conversely, this is as bad as the Chiefs have looked all year. So I don't care about the Chiefs being 0-2 in the last 2 games and wanting it more. Like, the Chiefs are not executing right now. I think the Bills are catching them at the right time. I think they're going to come out with a big win against the Chiefs. And, winning is the best deodorant. And if the Bills can win a close game against the Chiefs, where Sean McDermott is pretty sharp in some crucial situations down the stretch, that will erase a lot of what we've talked about in the first 36 minutes. But more conversation is to be had, because coming up tonight on Built in Buffalo is Bills Chat Live. I will not be there, though. I have some family stuff going on this weekend. So it's going to be Luca with our third man, Stokes, breaking down all stuff Bills Chiefs, getting into the nuts and bolts of that matchup. And they will let you know who they think is going to win Bills Chiefs this weekend. We'll also have another edition of Luca's Locks. He's been on a roll recently. He can win you some money. He's going to let you know what his 3 best NFL bets are of the week. Stokes always likes to give his thoughts on different bets he likes as well. And then coming up on Built in Buffalo this weekend, I'll be doing the Bills Chiefs halftime show on Built in Buffalo. Stokes will be there, I believe, with A-Rich on the pregame show. And then you can always look forward to hearing from Izzy on the post-game show, win or lose. Hopefully it's win. Hopefully it's happy content from here on out. The Bills need to get it going. They need to go on a roll. Hopefully it starts with the Chiefs. This was a much longer quick chat than we are used to having. I felt like there was just a lot of stuff that needed to be said. I did not think it was going to go 38 minutes, but here we are. I am Josh McCarty. I will talk to you next time on Bills Chat Quick Chat.